what led to Judas Maccabeus, the uprising, and sort of going from the sacking of the temple to the rededication? If you could elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah, no, it's a great, and yeah, you've done your work. That's great. It is just to sort of address that point. I think about the major minorness of this. Is that a word? I don't know, of the holiday. That Yeah, it's kind of an interesting thing. We tend to say yes, it's a minor. I think it's a minor holiday in the sense that it's a non-Torah holiday. Like it's not found in the Torah, right? So if
Right.
that's our most sacred scripture, then the holidays that we find in the Torah, such as the high holidays of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, the New Year and the Day of Atonement, plus our what we call the pilgrimage festivals like Sukkot, fall harvest holiday, Passover, story of liberation from Exodus, and Shavuot, which is a later spring holiday that celebrates the giving of the Torah. These are kind of seen as our major holidays because they're in the Torah and part of the commandedness, as we say, in the Torah. And Hanukkah comes later because Hanukkah is definitely a post-biblical holiday, and so it kind of like with Purim as well, and some others. So in that way, it's a minor holiday, theologically. But I do think you're right. I mean, it does take on kind of major characteristics because of the communities in which we live, and that we because of its proximity to Christmas, and it takes on a bit more of an outsized importance vis-a-vis its theological importance. But I actually don't think that that's a bad thing. I think it's kind of good because I think it becomes a major holiday in a way because it becomes it's a focal point. People celebrate it and sort of the themes that we'll get into in a minute. And I just think it's really nice that we come to a season when different communities are celebrating together, right? So we're all kind of celebrating different holidays at the same time, and I think that's kind of nice to kind of share that piece of it, especially since I think that there are some underlying similarities, right? We're kind of all celebrating light during the winter solstice, and whether it's lighting lights on trees or homes, which is I love to see in the neighborhoods where I live, or we're literally lighting lights during Hanukkah. I think that there's something kind of innately human to want to celebrate light during the darkest time of the year. So I kind of like that piece of it. So yeah, it becomes a bit of it's a minor major holiday as I sometimes refer to it. But yeah, it has and over the years it's taken on a number of different meanings. And you're right. And interestingly, as you mentioned, if you look at First and Second Maccabees, those books aren't even in the Jewish canon. It's like they are part of our apocrypha. So they are. It's where we find the story of Hanukkah. I mean, there's other references in the Talmud, but where some of the historical reference comes from, but it's not even part of our canon. So it's even interesting that way, sort of that. But yeah, I mean, in short, we kind of look to second, third century BCE, where the Syrian Greeks were kind of ruling the area, and with Jewish worship and community at the time centered around the temple in Jerusalem. This is pre-Christianity as well, and so that we don't recognize the importance of that location. And essentially, there was a kind of a process, or as we see, like Hellenization, where and sort of the community was persecuted and oppressed, and worship at the temple was forbidden, and it was taken over by the Greeks. And then there was kind of resistance to that, led by the Maccabees, as we call them, Hasmoneans, and to the extent of pushing back the Greek rulers and being able to reclaim the temple and then rededicate it for the Jewish community at the time. And so, yeah, I mean, that's kind of the kind of basic historical narrative, and that's kind of a story that we tell. Although once you sort of break into some of the details, it gets always more complicated in terms of, the Jewish community was split, and there was definitely aspects of inter-Jewish strife around that, and some who favored resistance, some who were kind of more assimilationist, and just sort of that process. I think things we see in communities all over, and
Right.
and and that, and then the that then becomes the basis for the holiday. But then we also have layers imposed upon that when we get to the story of the lights and the miracle of the oil, and it's almost like two stories are combining. I think it's interesting, the read in the Talmud about Hanukkah, and it doesn't really mention that history part. It doesn't
Mhm.
really talk about the military aspect to it. The warfare that went behind the Hanukkah. They focus more so on the rededication piece of the temple and the spiritual aspects, as well.